My name is Kinlian. I'm not involved in politics, but I pay close attention to issues affecting the people of Singapore. And today I want to give some of my views about HDB.
Hello everyone, I'm Goh Meng Seng. I'm from People's Power Party. And I'm in partition politics for about 17 years right now. And we are actually constantly looking into issues that affect a lot of people in Singapore. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to have a discussion with Kinlian on the HDB and the CPF issues. Hi, Kinlian. Recently there's one economic professor that actually talked about preventing Singaporeans from using CPF to buy their HDB flats or any other properties. What do you think about this thought?
There are some good reasons for this suggestion because we are contributing too much money into the CPF, and that money is a large part of it is being used to buy a property, HDB flat or a private property, and because the money is channeled in that way, then property prices get inflated. So if we don't allow the CPF to be used to buy property, which is suggested, that means we can also reduce the contribution to CPF, and that money can be used either to buy a property, to rent a house, or for other purposes. So what he said is makes sense, but I think it could cause a problem because many people already have bought their property,
yes,
and they are using it to pay their existing. Yes. Okay, so I would like to modify his suggestion because right now we have a problem, and the problem is that the CPF savings can only be used to buy property of long lease, and we now have the problem that many HDB flats are now approaching less than 60 years, and yes, CPF cannot be used to buy this. So we should find a solution to this problem about how can owners with HDB flats less than 60 years, how can they sell it into the market?
I think in my view, in my proposal, my party's proposal about this HDB and CPF issues, we believe that we should not restrict people on how they spend their money. For retirement, yes, we need about 20% savings for their retirement. But apart from that, we should not actually tell people that you should put money into CPF and you can only use to buy properties from HDB and all that. It actually causes a problem of overconsumption of housing. But having said that, this issue of HDB and CPF is very complex. As you have said, we have a problem of aging population, and a lot of people want to cash out, selling their properties and downgrade whatever, but they are finding difficult in selling their HDB because they are approaching 40 years and 50 years, right? There's no demand. How could we solve this demand problem? We will have a lot of supply of these old flats in time to come because of aging population.
The HDB building program started in the 1960s. Many HDB flats were built during that time, and now these flats are more than 40 years old, and they have now become the remaining lease is now less than 60, and under the current regulation, young people are not allowed to use CPF to buy this short lease property, and that is why the market for these old flats is almost dried up. So many people told me that they have a problem. They want to sell their old flats, but there is no buyer. and this is due to CPF cannot be used for buying property below 60 years for young people. Now, a good solution, therefore, is to change this rule, allow the CPF to be used to buy property less than 60 years, and this will free up the market, and it is then the owners will be able to sell and then to use the proceeds for their retirement.
Well, maybe I will add something to the model that you are talking about. I think even for older properties, we should actually restrict people using CPF, the amount of CPF they can use. And they should not use more than 20% of the contribution. That means of the 20% contributed. Because for retirement, it will be encroaching into the retirement financing. Either they choose to opt out from contributing their part to the CPF, the 20% from employee part, and use that to buy their older flats, or the CPF have a cap for older properties, maybe they will use only 20%.
That is a very sensible suggestion, that if you are going to use your CPF to buy property, especially the older property, the CPF that you use should be not more than 20% of your salary. But that restriction is all right, because older property are cheaper, and therefore the repayment will be less. It will easily fall within that 20% cap you suggested. It is also a very prudent move.
In fact, I think that there are a lot of single, unmarried people and young people, even young couples who cannot afford to buy new flats. I think if the government is ready to provide subsidies, just as what they are doing for the young couples to buy the BTO, or for the singles to buy their own flats, I think it is very affordable for this group of people. Instead of building new BTOs and keep building new flats for them to buy, and we will end up with oversupply of HDB, and the market will really crash because the old people want to sell out. And when they die, natural death, we will have oversupply of HDB by then, and it's not prudent for this to develop. I think we should actually rethink about these policies of giving subsidies to first-time buyers, whether you are married couples or singles, to buy old properties like that. I think it will solve a lot of problem of young couples cannot start their married family early, and of course it will affect having babies and all that. I think we should actually rethink of what we should do to help to mitigate this problem.
Well, I've looked into this problem, and I was told that there is actually a government grant for people to buy resale property.
Yes,
so correct. There is a grant. So the grant is available for new property as well as for resale property. Yeah? And I also agree it is better to encourage people not only to buy new property, but also to buy old property, the older property, because they are cheaper, and also then that will create a market so that new property can be sold, but older property can also be sold. And I agree with you about the danger of the current policy of only getting people to buy new property, and then the old flats, old HDB flats can't be sold. So that must be addressed. And the best way to address it is change the CPF rule so that they can still use CPF to buy old property. And then if this rule is changed, then the banks will be willing to provide the loan.
Yes, I believe we are a matured society, and people should be given the choice to make their decision on how to make use of their funds, whether it's for retirement financing, whether it's for properties. I think a good financial planning is 20% for retirement, 20% for housing needs. I think we should be all right if we have this general rule, and let people decide whether they want to continue to contribute on their part, their employees' contribution to the CPF, or they do not want to contribute and they want to use it for rental. For example, there are a lot of good location, old properties for rental. And HDB should be considered as a consumption eventually when you come to the age, a shorter lease. It should be just like a lot of industrial properties, which is 30-year lease, but the banks are still financing it because it's treated as a consumption goods. It's just an advance payment.
And if you buy a car, you consume it in 10 years.
Yes, precisely. Right? So why can't the bank or HDB provide loans for HDB, which is still have, 50, 60 years lease? It doesn't make sense, right?
What I hear from you, your suggestion is to allow those people who prefer to rent flat, to rent a property, to a home to stay in, that they should not be, they are allowed to be exempted from contributing to the CPF.
Yes.
So they can use that money to pay rental for a flat.
Yes.
And I think that's a good idea.
Yes. They might even use it in their early lives to do business. You know, they should not be restricted on that sense.
I think that is probably what the professor is suggesting. Don't allow CPF to be used to buy property. So what I expect him to say, reduce the CPF contribution so it can be used more freely in other ways.
Yes, I think he has actually clarified on his point that in another blog post that he actually meant that people should not be contributing too much CPF into CPF. I think it will be a sound suggestion, and I believe People's Power Party will actually take that as our manifesto-ish policy option as well for the CPF and HDB.
So let me summarize my view that we do have a problem now. Many HDB flats are less than 60 years balance of lease. The owners cannot sell these flats or find it very difficult. They may have to make a big loss just to get a buyer. And it is good for the government to change the regulation to allow CPF to be used for property less than 60 years. That will free up the market, and that will also provide options for young people to buy cheaper flats, which they can then will find it not so expensive. So I think this suggestion should be good for many people.
Thank you.